All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Black Spinner Music Podcast. And I know that we took a couple of weeks off, for the holidays and for things we were doing with our families, but we're back, and we've got a lot of big news with us today. Joining us today is the new co-host to the Black Spinner Music Podcast, Al Horta. Hey Al, congratulations!
That
Now,
will Thank
now we
you.
get to split the profits of zero. But
Hey,
thank you so much for saying yes. Um,
oh well, I'm honored, man. I'm honored that you asked me, and I'm happy to be your co-host, dude. And going forward, man, it's gonna be great, dude. Like I'll bring some of my ideas in, and we'll collaborate, and we'll have we'll still keep having the great guests like Joe and all them guys, man. So no, I want Joe out of here. Kick him out.
Oh no, it's the Judas Priest shirt, isn't it?
No. Actually, this is tough because as we go into the show,
yeah,
we'll talk about
No,
it.
I was gonna say I'm glad we both we're each representing here, so we got a nice fair balanced
I
representation.
was gonna wear a Kiss shirt, being that they're playing their last shows this weekend. I was almost gonna wear a Kiss shirt, but I don't have a
Andy
Judas
got that
Priest
covered.
shirt, man. I gotta get a Judas Priest shirt. I don't actually have one, so
I got a nice Defenders of the Faith shirt.
Defenders, man, yeah.
yeah. I've
For-
got I got a British Steel shirt, and I got the Killers shirt, but I didn't want to, show one way or the other.
Nah, it's cool, man.
Yeah, because I don't even know which way I'm going sometimes on this thing. And joining us tonight is Joseph Staub. What's it going on, Joseph?
Oh, listening to a lot of great music, in preparation for this podcast. I was excited when Andy messaged me about what the idea was, and glad to be able to get on here and talk about some great bands.
Yeah, what we are doing is that we are doing a not just a vinyl battle, but kind of a career defining battle between Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. And the reason why I came up with this was that have y'all noticed in a lot of music groups that we're in the past 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of people have been pitting Bruce against Rob or Maiden against Priest, and you're like, why do you have to choose? But we're gonna go ahead and not just be subjective that this sucks, that sucks. We're just going to go album by album from 1980, because that's when Judas Priest released their debut album, all the way to the present time. So we are going to hit these albums, and we're each going to vote on which album, and at the end, we'll come up with a winner of who is better, Judas Priest or Iron Maiden. This might be the deciding moment that the world is going to follow in our footsteps. And finally,
Andy, I can tell you this. I've been on these Facebook groups for about 8 years now, and it's been a consistent fight for those entire 8 years. No one ever changes anybody's mind about it. It's a continuous debate.
Well, I'm glad that we're gonna have the
Everybody,
answer.
to everybody that's out there, cheers, and let's get to it, man.
Yep, we're gonna get right to it, and we are gonna get started with the first album in 1980 for Iron Maiden debut album, going against one of Judas Priest's best albums that they really hit it in the big market, and that's going to be British Steel. All right, Joe, take it away.
All right, well, we're certainly starting off with a bang here, not throwing out two of the best metal albums ever released or anything, but we're starting off really, really hard here. The funny thing I noticed about this discography was the 80s stuff is hard for me to pick. Everything after that, I knew exactly what I was picking. So, I mean, I'll do a little prologue here before I show you which one I picked for this particular battle. But anyone who knows me on Facebook knows that I do fall into a particular community of people who think that Iron Maiden is a bit overrated, let's say. As far as metal bands go, I do think that they're given a lot more credit than they sometimes deserve for a lot of things, particularly when Bruce Dickinson joined the band. But I do love Iron Maiden. I've seen them live. They put on a great show. I wouldn't have all these CDs if I didn't enjoy Iron Maiden. So we'll start with that. But I kind of surprised myself a little bit as I was going through this list. It didn't I'll give a spoiler alert now, but it didn't turn out as one-sided as I thought it would be. Whether that is due to the fact that I think some of Judas Priest's best albums are before the era that we're currently talking about, or whether it's just the strength or the lack of strength of certain eras of both bands that lead. There's at least two battles here where I think neither album is particularly great, but I had to pick one as we get later in the discography. So as we go through, you'll kind of see what I mean. But for this first battle, this was hard because both of these albums are phenomenal. British Steel is, like Andy said, what really kind of broke Judas Priest big here, studio-wise. Of course, Unleashed in the East was a huge, huge deal, but British Steel, and particularly the two big singles, Living After Midnight and Breaking the Law, really kind of broke them big here more than a lot of their other 70s stuff had done. And so this was a big deal for them, and it's a great album all around. I mean, Metal Gods, Grinder, so many amazing songs on this album. But, you know, when it comes down to it, gotta go with the debut Maiden. I mean, what a sound this album has. I mean, people criticize the production all the time, but it's such a unique sound on this album that no real band really, I mean, it was new wave of British heavy metal, but it had a kind of a punk edge to it, even more so than a lot of other new wave bands had. You have Deano's vocals. I mean, I'm a huge Deano guy, so I mean, yes, you're for the next 5 minutes or so, you're going to hear me praise Deano a lot. But particularly on this album, it's such a unique vocal style, and you get so many amazing classic tracks that Iron Maiden still pulls out to this day. Not done as well as they were in 1980, but we can argue that another time. But, I mean, right from the beginning, Prowler, Remember Tomorrow is one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs, Running Free, Phantom of the Opera, the title track, Iron Maiden, Charlotte the Harlot, just so many amazing things. And, of course, as I've talked about many times, these stupid 2015 reissue CDs are just trash because it left Sanctuary off the CD because it went by the UK the track listing, even though in America, Sanctuary was on the original album. Mm-hmm. Now worldwide, it isn't. You cannot buy Sanctuary on a CD anywhere, which I think is so stupid. But still, gonna have to go with the first Maiden album on this one.
Good one. Yeah. Which way are you gonna go on this one?
Well, to preface what I'm gonna talk about, like these two bands, obviously Timeline is everything. Like when you come into a band and everything, and I came into obviously both bands in the 80s. I mean, well, Iron Maiden started in the 80s, so the fact that Judas Priest has 70s albums, I didn't find out until later on, but subsequently they ended up becoming my favorite era of Judas Priest, actually. But we're not talking about that era. We're starting with 1980. So we're starting with the debut of Maiden versus British Steel. I'm of the camp that actually thinks that British Steel is a bit overrated. You know, a lot of people might gasp at that. But I never thought it's a great album. Don't get me wrong. But I never thought, like, the praise that it gets kind of, and it did break them. So I understand why it gets the praise. It broke them in America, and it broke them as a major band, dude. They became, they didn't start headlining until too much before, like, this album. So they opened up for a lot of, on the year before, they were opening up for Kiss on the Dynasty tour, stuff like that. So, I mean, and they headlined smaller places, but they became an arena band with this album. So, so obviously, like, they had radio hits and all that stuff. However, I love the Deano era Maiden. I love the debut album, and to me, that beats British Steel hands down, in my opinion, in my world, And I didn't become a Deano guy until, like, much later on, because when I first discovered Iron Maiden, I didn't discover them until Number of the Beast, and then it wasn't until a couple of years, that I went back and I got the first two albums, and I was like, damn, this is, like, great shit. People always told me, like, yeah, Paul Deano was the original singer, and check out the albums and stuff. And I finally broke down. I got them, And I gotta say, man, I prefer Deanna over Dickinson. Pretty much like these days, So those first two Maiden albums, man, are my go-tos. So I got to pick the debut over British Steel. So and again, like I don't know, I just when Judas Priest started writing the anthems, that's when they kind of started. Nah, they didn't lose me, but it's like I said again, British Steel is a bit overrated in my book, in my opinion. So I've heard other people say that too. So I'm not alone in this.
I'm
So
I'm kind of with you on that, Al. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely wouldn't be in probably even my top like 8 or 9 Judas Priest albums.
yeah. So, but a lot of people love it,
Yeah.
and that's again they broke on that album, and and a lot of people discovered them with that. So, but I'm going with Maiden.
Yeah.
I love the rawness of the first Maiden album too.
Yeah. When we're talking about 1980s Judas Priest, we need to remember, and which y'all had already discussed it, but just to let the folks at home know that that Judas Priest was already like 8 years into their professional
Pretty
career,
much, yeah.
where they had already had 6 albums prior, plus the wonderful double live album Unleash in the East. So they were already, big in that community. With that being said, it seems like on this album, British Steel, maybe the commercial people got to them a little bit when Maiden came out just so raw. And I'm about to be 49 next week. So when I came into Maiden, all that I knew was Bruce, coming in at Peace of Mind. So when I worked my way back years later, I was amazed by this debut album. And Joseph hit on all the great songs on that debut album. And it just had an edge to it. It was a different sound. It was a it was a very carefree, very street tough type of band. And man, it just Phantom of the Opera is one of their greatest songs.
Oh God, yeah.
Just the way they're just da 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 da, just the musicianship on their debut album, which will lead them to greater success. They will get better. But man, that debut album, that's got to be one of my favorite debut albums. Period.
Yeah, and to interject here a little more, and even though like they had that punk influence in them, they still were writing even right out the bat on a debut. They were writing some pretty epic songs already, dude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was almost like, I'm not calling them prog on the debut, but it's almost like combining like a little punk with a little bit of prog in there,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what like I think the new wave of British heavy metal was anyway. It's like the punk influence came into like the punk attitude and energy combined with musicianship kind of made up that scene, the new wave of British heavy metal. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've never heard of that. I've never thought about that punk influence, but it's true. They
Yeah.
did it with great musicians that can stretch out songs and come out with solos instead of just the 1, 2, 3 chords.
Yeah.
They expanded it, but had
Yeah.
that attitude, and the way that Paul Diano sung
Yeah.
this album shows that kind of attitude. And
Yeah.
I'll talk about the attitude later on. That will help down the road. But that was a clean sweep for the debut album by Iron Maiden. It's such a great, iconic album cover too. With we were introduced to Eddie at
Oh
that
my
time.
God, that album cover, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's got the punk hairstyle in there. It's like that's like
and especially with the original one, but without like the red eyes and stuff, he just looks cracked out. Like,
and what a way that you see him first off, and then you see that they will progress with him as they go, and as we know that Eddie simplifies what's inside the album, and right there, that the album cover is street punk, with a nothing to lose, you know, just everything to gain, and that's what that first album was. So that was a clean sweep. Album number 2, The second album with Paul Diano, and also their last, will go up against Point of Entry by Judas Priest, which had a couple of hit songs on there, and it was a big hit for them. But let's weigh out. Let's see which one wins. Which way are you going to go here, Joseph?
All right, so this is a bit of a controversial album in the Judas Priest discography.
Mhm.
Um, Even more so than British Steel, I think this one kind of gets a lot on both sides. There's people that come out defending this album. There's some people that just straight up hate this album. There's that image circulating around of like a cassette of Judas Priest's worst
The
songs
worst,
or whatever it
the
is,
worst.
like the worst of Judas Priest or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and half the cassette is Point of Entry. Like half the cassette, like even like the generally regarded good songs on Point of Entry, people will throw it on there just because it was on Point of Entry. And I'm kind of in the middle on it. I'm not in the oh it's the worst thing they ever did category, but I'm also not in the oh it's the most underrated album that they've ever put out. Yada yada yada. I think there's some great songs on there. I think that there are some songs that are not as bad as people say they are, but there is some bad songs on that album, and you cannot say the same for Killers
No.
in the slightest. This album just takes everything that they were doing on the first album and kicks it up to 11. I mean, if you thought there was proggy moments on the first album, listen to Killers. If you thought there were punk moments on the first album, listen to Killers. The production is better. Everyone sounds stronger. Everyone sounds more confident. Deanna's voice is even stronger than it was on the first album. You just got so many amazing tracks on this album, and it's really interweaving. I think this is the album that they perfected. They never did it better than this album. The combination of that kind of street punk hard rock sound with the prog. Everyone will kind of say, yeah, they kind of got a little too proggy later in their career, or there's some times where on albums like we'll talk about with No Prayer for the Dying, they kind of stripped it back completely to more of the hard rock kind of stripped down. I don't think they ever did the merging and the combination better than on this album. And I definitely have to go with Killers for this pick.
Well, like Joe said, Point of Entry. Point of Entry it's one of those albums that gets sandwiched in between two quote unquote classics. Kind of gets lost in the shuffle. There are great tracks on it, though. I mean, to me, Desert Plains and Solar Angels, man, are just killer tracks on there. That being said, there is a fair amount of some filler on there. Where again, Joe said there's no filler on Killers. Killers is all killer, no filler. Hence the name. So, yeah, I'm going with Killers, man. Or enter Martin Birch, which would go on to become kind of the sixth member of Iron Maiden. His production style is awesome. I mean, you can hear his production on Black Sabbath when Dio came in, and I mean, I love his production style. So he gave them a bit of more of a punch. Although I still love the rawness of the first album. This album is like kind of the perfect blend of like a little bit of polish, but still like has that rawness to it. And I mean, what can you say? I mean, the tracks on here, they're all awesome. Excuse me. The cover, the killer album cover, man. I have a back patch that I haven't sewn onto a jacket yet. I've had it for years. I want to start a new like battle vest and put that as like the beginning of it, like the Killer's back patch. And really, that's it, man. I mean, Killers is like, I mean, that's it. Oh, and exits Dennis Stratton and Adrian Smith comes in on this album, which will kind of solidify the classic. Well, I mean, everybody has their own class. I mean, some people will say Bruce is part of the classic lineup. I think Paul Diano's the classic. But I like Dennis Stratton on the first album, though. But I think Adrian Smith brought in more of a songwriting ability. And I like Adrian, man. He's a great player too. So, but I'm going with Killers, man. That's my pick.
My pick here, it looks like Killers is going to have another suite because Point of Entry to me is one of their bad albums. One of their albums that's towards the bottom, in my opinion. Um, what a what an odd album to come in between British Steel and Screaming for Vengeance, two of their most popular albums, and then you know, I don't know, it was maybe sometimes we get albums like these from bands that we love, either fatigue, they've been on the road, they haven't had time to write, but there are contracts to fulfill. Sometimes we hear this kind of stuff. So I am going to go with Killers on this one too, just like you guys.
Yeah, Killers, man.
Yeah. Now, the third album we're going to talk about from 1982. Iron Maiden gives us Number of the Beast with a new singer by the name of Bruce Dickinson from Samson. And then the great and mighty Judas Priest makes such a big comeback after the point of entry with Screaming for Vengeance. Love that album cover with the talons and that. I mean, just it is so iconic. That's another iconic album. We're gonna be talking about so many different iconic album covers on here, but the ones from both of these are fantastic. Joe, which album do you like better, The Number of the Beast or Screaming for Vengeance?
All right, so this was not a super hard pick for me. This is kind of where I get into a little bit of the kind of controversy that Al was getting himself into with the first pick. The way Al feels about British Steel, I feel about Number of the Beast. I first of all, I don't think that Maiden has made a perfect album since Killers. I don't believe that Iron Maiden has made a perfect album since Killers. That being said, I think Number of the Beast particularly is fairly spotty, in my opinion. I think that, I don't know for me if it's a combination of there are at least two tracks that I just do not like on this album, but also there are two tracks that I can almost never listen to anymore because I've heard them so many times. If I never hear the title track or Run to the Hills in my life, I will not be upset. That being said, the rest of the album is amazing. 22 Acacia Avenue, great follow-up to Charlotte the Harlot. The Prisoner, great track.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Hallowed Be Thy Name is possibly my favorite song of the Bruce Dickinson era. And that was one of the ones when I saw them live for the first time that really hit me. I'm just like, wow, I'm watching Iron Maiden play Hallowed Be Thy Name.
Yeah.
So for everything that I think is a drawback of this album, there are a lot of amazing songs. But that being said, I do have to go with Screaming for Vengeance on this. Like Andy said, what just an absolute screaming comeback after an album that was very kind of giving mixed signals as far as style and kind of outlook or commercial potential. And so they went back in, they sat down and said, okay, we're a heavy metal band. We're going to write a heavy metal album. And so they put this out. And I mean, just right from the beginning with the Hellion into Electric Eye, all the way through to Devil's Child. I mean, this album does not let up on you. And their catchy moments, I mean, You Got Another Thing Coming became a big hit for them. And Take These Chains is catchier than a lot of the other stuff on this album. But so many just great songs, Riding on the Wind, Bloodstone, the title track, Screaming for Vengeance, that one doesn't let up on you.
No.
But just an absolute classic of an album, and I definitely have to give my first vote to Judas Priest of this battle.
Good one. Good talk. Al, which way are you going to go here?
Yeah, well, these two albums, both of these albums really are kind of my introduction to each band. I mean, my brother had The Number of the Beast on cassette, and he also had right behind me here is the Screaming for Vengeance vinyl. It's actually, when I met Rob Halford, he signed it for me, which is cool, and then above it is Firepower, that's signed by the whole band. Yeah, so these are really the first two albums that were my introduction to both bands, and this is the toughest one for me, man. Like to pick which one because I love both albums so much, and they both have sentimental value to me and stuff. So ultimately, though, I'm gonna lean, and it's just by a hair for me, but I'm leaning towards Screaming for Vengeance as well. Um, man, they came back roaring with this album, and the track listing on there, like Joe just went over me, Devil's Child and title track, and the Hellion, um,
Electric Eye.
I mean, the production on it is like unbelievable. Tom Allen really like, he really he shined on this album, like the production and stuff. And again, I love Number of the Beast, man. There's some great tracks in there too, but it's really tough this one. But I mean, I am leaning towards Screaming. I'm giving Priest the edge on this one, so that'll be my pick.
All right, 2-0. Let's see which way I'm going to go. I'm going to go with one of my favorite albums of all time that's in my personal top 20, and that is Number of the Beast. I love Number of the Beast. I think that album is strong from beginning to end. But also, just to say that Screaming for Vengeance is probably my favorite Judas Priest album. I love that album. I used to have that poster on my door, but my stepdad took it down because of all that crap that was going on in the news and this and that. But man, I wanted at a carnival and stuff, and I loved that album. It was fantastic. So, and I think what happened on that album is that they took the great parts of their earlier albums and mixed it in also with with the breakout era too. They learned how to merge both being critical favorites for new fans and favorites of their old fans. So that's why this album is so good. But I'm gonna be the lone wolf here, and I'm gonna have to go with Number of the Beast because I love that album from beginning to end. I think it's great. So that one, Judas Priest takes that one. It's 2-1 now. So now we go on to the next album, Peace of Mind by Iron Maiden versus Defenders of the Faith, that shirt that Joseph has on right there. Which way are you going to go here, Joseph? Are you going to go with your shirt?
All righty. So this was one of the hardest battles of the entire thing for me. Specifically because I'm of the opinion, and I know it's a shared opinion with some people I've talked to online, both of these are amazing albums that kind of tail off towards the end. Particularly so for me on Peace of Mind. I think if you released the first 6 tracks of Peace of Mind as a double EP, I think it would be one of the greatest things Iron Maiden ever did. Unfortunately for them, they also released the final 3 tracks, which I am not a fan of at all. On the flip side, for Judas Priest, you have an album that starts out with so many great tracks: Free Will Burning, Jawbreaker, The Sentinel, Eat Me Alive, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll. And then you kind of get into Night Comes Down, which is a great song, but then you get into Heavy Duty and Defenders of the Faith, which is not a great way to end this album. And I really went back and forth a lot on this particular battle. I honestly think the highs on Peace of Mind are higher in a lot of ways, but the lows are also lower. And I honestly just think that Defenders is a more consistent album. I think that, aside from The Sentinel, which I think is in my top 3 Judas Priest songs ever written, it doesn't hit the highs of something like Flight of Icarus or Revelations or The Trooper. But also, I don't think there's anything as bad on this album, even the songs I'm not a huge fan of, as Quest for Fire or To Tame a Land, that I'm not a fan of at all. So this one I did actually switch several times over the past week, but I am going to have to go with Defenders of the Faith.
Okay. Al, which way are you going to go? Peace of Mind or Defenders of the Faith?
Joe hit on a great points on both these albums. That they do tail both of them. I agree with him 100%. They both tail off at the end. They start just filler that just brings the album down. And both albums could have been perfect albums if they, cut those songs out. That being said, Defenders of the Faith to me is kind of like the cousin of Scream for Vengeance, really. If you look at both albums, even almost the format of the album, like the way the tracks go, is almost kind of like the same as like Screaming for Vengeance. That being said, I don't think the production on this album is as good as Screaming for Vengeance.
No.
The drums start becoming a bit mechanical on this album. Dave Holland is playing on it, but the way they produce the drums just kind of makes it, I don't know, just sound a little more not like, how should I say, the drums on like, British Steel and even Point of Entry. I like Point of Entry's production on there. Yeah. The production's really nice on that. Here is where it starts getting a little, you could kind of tell kind of where they were like heading to, still a great album though. But to me, Iron Maiden's Peace of Mind beats this one for me, because the highs on the Peace of Mind outweigh the highs on Defenders of the Faith. And again, I'm a production guy. I love good. A raw album can sound great. Like the first Iron Maiden album is raw, but I love the sound of it. It sounds, everything's where it should be. You know what I mean? So, but like here, man, I mean, just like kind of the drums and the bass and all that, it's starting to sound like they're putting triggers on it or some sort of shit like that. And then to me, it drags it a couple of steps down. So, and I still love it. Again, like when I was introduced to Judas Priest, it was a 1-2 punch. It was Scream for Vengeance and Defenders of Faith. I heard both of them at the same time. So it was really, those are my introductions. But I love Peace of Mind. Peace of Mind production on there, some of the best production on an Iron Maiden album, in my opinion. Martin Birch really made it sound great. Revelations is actually could be my favorite Iron Maiden song. It's definitely my top 5. I love that song so much. So yeah, I'm going Peace of Mind, man. I'm going Maiden on this one.
I have a funny little story about that song Revelations real quick before Andy gets into his pick.
Sure,
but when I saw them last year on the on whatever they were calling that tour,
Legacy of the Beat.
I guess.
No, who Priest or Maiden?
Maiden.
Yeah, it's been Legacy of the Beast tour.
Yeah, the second leg when they were playing the Senshitsu songs.
Yeah.
The
Senshitsu.
Yeah. So we'll get into that later, but that's I'm all for promoting your new album, but I've never seen a worse way to start off a concert.
The first 3 songs, right?
And playing 3 songs unannounced, like not even unannounced, but like just like coming out and just starting with 3 songs off your brand new album.
Yeah.
That did not go over great. The 4th song was Revelations. And the crowd just went freaking
erupted.
nuts.
Yeah, I saw that show too.
They were into the Senjutsu songs. They were going with it, they were playing along with the band, they were kind of into it. But when da-dun, da-dun,
yeah,
the crowd just went nuts.
Ballistic.
Man.
Yeah.
So I know that has to piss off Iron Maiden, just because they're probably one of the biggest bands to like really be like into promoting your new music that I've ever seen. I mean,
well, like on this current one tour now,
they're playing half the album.
Yeah,
like it's half the set list is from Shinjutsu that they're promoting it that way. But like, I'm sure it kind of got old every night to go out and play 3 songs off your new album, get like okay reception for it, and then go into Revelations and then just have the place lose their mind. But
I guess I don't know. For me, when I saw that show, I was like, yeah, you know what? Get the 3 songs out of the way. You know, get the new shit out of the way.
It was good, but I had some issues.
But you want them to open up with like they open up with a new song.
Yeah, it was Writing on the Wall was what they opened up with.
Okay, yeah, okay.
It was the title track, Senjutsu was what they opened up with. But yeah, you think of all these classic Iron Maiden live albums that are opening up with
Aces High,
or the early days where you're opening up with Prowler, or you're opening up with like some of the early stuff, or even on like into like the Made in England '88 show with Moonchild opening the show, or something that really kicks you into high gear. I'm sorry, the title track of Senjutsu does not do that at a concert. They basically just come out on stage and start playing, and then everyone's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, they're here. Woo, let's go, woo!" And then like that felt like the true beginning of the concert when Revelations started playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just my kind of funny story. I'm like, my first time ever seeing Iron Maiden, I'm just like, okay, yeah, I kind of get where a lot of people are coming from with like the new stuff. Sometimes it's like, it was not a very well organized set list. I'll say, it could have been planned a lot better.
I didn't see this tour. On the last tour I saw was the Book of Souls, when they were doing that album, and that was like they were doing the Book of Souls, but the set on stage was very Power Slave like. The set. I mean, not what they played, but what they had on stage.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember on like the DVD what the stage set was for that. Well, it also could be because I know like the theme of Book of Souls, like it's like very like ancient Mayan temple, so it kind of looks a lot like Power Slave with like the Mayan temple and the Egyptian pyramid kind of look.
Yeah, you're right. I think because I think the theme of that album, I remember the album cover is kind of with the way Eddie looks, kind of could
like
be
Amazonish.
Yeah. This.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It could be a bit of like, Egyptian kind of the way Power Slave
architecture and stuff.
I mean, that Power Slave album cover is tough to beat, though. That's a great album cover.
And just because it's not on one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight,
right?
Let's just show it off. Power Slave rules. Here we go. Power Slave. Great album. We're not going to talk about it tonight, but it's a great album. So.
Yep, and I'll get to that point when we get to it. But my pick on here, I'm going to go with Defenders of the Faith on this one. So Defenders of the Faith is going to win this one. I really like side one of Peace of Mind. I think it's fantastic. But man, side two, after the beginning, it drags. The last two tracks really do drag. And I was like, man, but the thing is that I think one of y'all said this. I like the songs on side one better on Peace of Mind, but to hear the whole thing as a whole, as an album, I will give it to Defenders of the Faith, because even though the last couple of tracks aren't their greatest, they're not boring like the way that Peace of Mind ended for me. And I will talk about that later, but it starts to get a little pretentious. You're like, this is dragging. I want my hard rock and heavy metal.
You can kind of tell where Maiden is going.
So I'm going to go with Defenders of the Faith here, and this is the first album. No, second album. Wow, so it's tied 2-2. That's fantastic. 2-2. Well, we are going to skip Power Slave, because when Power Slave was released, it was a little bit far in between for me to reach out and grab a Judas Priest album. I think they're about two years apart.
Defenders and Power Slave were released the same year.
Okay, I guess
Yeah, they were both 84. Like yeah.
Okay, but we're gonna skip down to Turbo by Judas Priest versus Somewhere in Time by Judas Priest by Iron Maiden. And both of these albums were big hits on MTV because of the videos that were released for both albums. And at that time, MTV was the word all around music for all genres. So every band, no matter what genre they were trying to fit in, because that was great exposure. Videos led to tours, and tours led to live shows, and money, money, money. So everybody was playing this game, but let's see who played it better. What do you think, Joe? Are you going to go with Turbo or Somewhere in Time?
All right, so this is going to be the exact opposite of the last pick for me. Both of these albums really kind of reached into the kind of electronic sound with synthesizers and kind of giving in. I do think Iron Maiden did a much better job integrating them into their sound, particularly on this album. We'll talk in a little bit where I think they get a little too far with it in a little bit, but on this album, I think they do a really good job integrating that into their sound. So what I said about Peace of Mind was that I think the highs are higher, but the lows are lower. That is true for me about Turbo. The song Turbo Lover, Out in the Cold, and Locked In, I absolutely love. They're some of my favorite songs from that period of Judas Priest, and I would put them up with a lot of their other classic material. The rest of the album is garbage. Absolute awful. Somewhere in Time is a much more consistent album for me. I don't think there's any track that I love as much as those three songs that I just mentioned, but there's a lot of really great stuff on here. Wasted Years is a great kind of short rocker. Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, Deja Vu, Alexander the Great, Stranger in a Strange Land, just all great, consistent, solid songs. I think this is a very, very consistent album for me. There are some times where it slips a little bit. Having Come Wait goes a little too far sometimes. But other than that, I think it's a very consistent album. I definitely would put it over Turbo, even though there's some songs on Turbo that I do like more than the songs on this album. But I think there's nothing on this album that even gets near anything like Parental Guidance. So,
Yeah.
So you're going to go with Somewhere in Time. All right.
yep.
What do you think, Al? Turbo or Somewhere in Time?
Yeah, dude. Somewhere in Time, I really love. I really dig that album. Actually, by that time, I was really like into progressive metal, and I was into getting into like Queensryche, and I was way deep into Rush already and stuff. So Maiden was kind of with this album. They're really starting to show their prog influences on here. Turbo, like Joe said, it's only a handful of songs on there like that are good, and the rest is like just they were really like chasing the almost. I mean, even in the videos and the way they looked they were going almost glammy, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's
a reason that Turbo outfits became a catchphrase.
Yeah. And it's just like maybe when I was younger, I kind of was like, all right, Priest, whatever. But I dug Somewhere in Time. No, that album cover Somewhere in Time because I was really into like Blade Runner and shit like that, dude. And the futuristic Eddie as like a cyborg man was just fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
And I love the songs on there too. Heaven Can Wait is actually one of my favorite songs on there, and I think they're doing it on this current tour.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Caught Somewhere in Time. It's a great opener. I like Sea of Madness, the longest runner. Alexander the Great epic that ends the album. And so I'm going with Iron Maiden on this one. To me, this just pounces all over fucking Turbo, man. This album. Turbo didn't even have a chance. Like when I looked at the two of them, I'm like, you don't even have a chance, buddy. So.
Yeah, with me on this one, I absolutely hate Turbo. Even when I was a kid, I didn't like the video for Turbo Lover, and I remember when it came on, it was just bad, and it didn't catch my attention. I liked the song, and then forget about the rest of the album. Now, Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden, we all know side one has the hits, but man, side two, you can really hear the prog coming in. You can really hear away from what they did on Peace of Mind side two. Right here, they did it right. They played the longer songs, but they kept you
Interested.
through it. You were interested in it, and it was just so good. and then throughout the history of the band, you can hear that that's where these long songs or these prog metal songs started from side two of Somewhere in Time, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Somewhere in Time as well. It is a clean sweep for Iron Maiden, so they're up 3-2. I did this backwards.
Mhm.
So the next one we're going to go with, it's going to be Judas Priest with Ram It Down against Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Joe, which way are you going to go here?
Alrighty, so this is the first battle where I have nothing to hold up because I don't like either of these albums. I think both of these albums are bloated messes. I think that Ram It Down just has no idea what it wants to be. Because on one hand, you have stuff like the title track Ram It Down and Blood Red Skies that are just amazing tracks. But then you have Johnny Be Good. Like, that's all I have to say. Like, it's just awful. And it's up there in the running for me for worst Judas Priest album. Even more so than Turbo. I think Ram It Down's just atrocious. Seventh Son is where I think Iron Maiden gets a little too into keyboards. And you can tell even they thought so because the next album they completely got rid of all of it and tried to strip back as close as they could to like a classic hard rock sound on the next album that we're going to talk about. But there are some good songs on this. Moonchild's a great song. Infinite Dreams is a great song. There's some really, really good stuff on this album. I just think it's a bloated mess, particularly on the second half of this album. But that being said, I definitely have to go with Seventh Son. I mean, it's no contest for me. Ram It Down's one of the worst things ever put on vinyl.
All right, Al, which way are you going to go here on this one? Which one you think's a better album?
Yeah, Joe again then hits the nail on the head. I think Iron Maiden. I think they swung too much into the keyboard thing and the trying to be prog, and just you had a good mixture of like metal and prog on the last album. Like don't like now it's just kind of the pendulum swinging a little too much into the prog era. And I don't get me wrong, I love prog metal, but I want Judas Priest. I mean Iron Maiden with some bite too. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's they started getting a bit too not ambitious, but
Pretentious,
like
maybe.
huh?
Pretentious, maybe.
Pretentious. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. Yeah, they're getting a little bit pretentious on this album. So that being said, yeah, Ram It Down. There's some good intentions on Ram It Down. You could kind of just Blood Red Skies and Ram It Down and some of the songs on there. There's the hint of where they're going. They're getting harder again. But then there's like some fucking some bad crap on there too. And notwithstanding Johnny Be Good because that's pretty bad. But let's see what else is on here. I don't even remember.
Heavy metal. Any song called heavy metal is just destined.
Yeah, that one no good. Love Zone, no good. You know what I mean? Yeah, dude. I mean, it's not a great album at all, and I don't even know if I like Turbo better than this one. I don't know which one I think is worse. I think both of them they're pretty bad Priest albums. This was definitely the nadir of their career. The lowest. As far as songwriting and stuff like that. But again, Ram It Down has a couple of tracks, kind of hints of where they're going. Like I remember hearing Blood Red Skies. I'm like, this is a really good song. That probably might be the strongest song on an album. It has an epic feel to it, and it's heavy, and it's got that crunch and stuff like that. That being said, I am going with Seventh Son. I think it's the lesser of crap. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, there's some good songs on there too. Like, Moonchild is a great opener. I do like that track a lot. They got a bit poppy with the single. What's the single on there?
Can I Play with Madness?
Yeah, Can I Play? I mean, it was almost like, dude, they were kind of chasing the hit single a little bit there, you know. And it was, I remember it being played a lot on MTV, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
got a
Oh,
lot-
they still do. They
Yeah.
still do. And you look at MTV Classic and you watch any of those, like,
yeah. Oh yeah,
whether
yeah.
it's 80s on whatever it is,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the rock block, Metal Mania,
Rock
whatever
block.
it is. They play Capo with Madness all the
Exactly.
time. And
Yeah,
so does Sirius XM. It gets me. I hate that song so much because of Sirius XM.
But yeah, I'm gonna go with Seventh Son on this one.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a clean sweep because I'm going to go with Seventh Son of the Seventh Son. I remember when this came out, I was excited. I loved it because I love the "Can I Play with Madness" song, and that video was everywhere. Which, according to y'all, it's still out there quite a bit. So
I thought it was a pretty cool video, though.
yeah,
I like
It was
the
pretty
video.
inventive. I love like the drawings in the sky and stuff like that. It was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And there's something about the production on Seventh Son of the Seventh Son. It always sounds new or fresh or something. There's a kind of feel every time I hear Seventh Son of the Seventh Son. Ram It Down, like y'all said, had a lot of holes in it. And, I think once again, they were caught in the middle of what they really wanted to do, what the record company wanted to do, what MTV wanted you to do, what sales wants you to do. I'd be very interested to see how many songs they played off of this album during that tour. And I'll take a look at
Not
it.
many, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they stuck to their guns.
I think they only played a couple, man. That was really it. You know.
Yeah.
I have to look back on that set list.
Yeah.
I'll do some
I'll
research
look
real
up
quick.
on this FM, which is a great website. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Got a lot of information. I love it. So that was a clean sweep for Seventh Son, Seventh Son. Next album, Judas Priest comes out with Painkiller. And Iron Maiden will come out with No Prayer for the Dying. So, which way are you going to go here, Joe? Are you going to go Painkiller or No Prayer for the Dying?
All right. So just a little update. I quickly went on Setlist FM real quick. Yeah. Other than Rockarola, Ram It Down is the album that they've played the least tracks off of
Wow.
the from the original Halford run. The only albums that they've played less songs off of are Redeemer of Souls, Nostradamus, Jugulator, Rockarola, and Demolition. That's the only albums that they've played less songs off of live.
Wow, okay.
The most they played Blood Red Skies 173 times.
Which is the song that Al was talking about.
They also played I'm a Rocker 156 times, which is weird. That's not one you would think they would really pull out live.
No, not at all.
The rest, they played Heavy Metal, Ram It Down, and Come and Get It all 360 times each. And then that's all they've played. They haven't played, I don't think they've played anything off this album
on that tour
since, okay. So they played Blood Red Skies a little bit last year. They played it last year.
Oh, wow.
I think they played, they may have played Blood Red Skies too on the Epitaph tour.
Yes, they did. Actually, that was the first time they ever played Blood Red Skies live. They did not play the song on the original tour.
Oh, okay. All right.
The first time they played it was 2011.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm interested on I'm a Rocker when they played that one live the most because that's the only other one that was played. Oh, okay. It was played during the original tour, which was the other three songs were only played during the Ram It Down tour, and it was played during the 2005 tour. I'm a Rocker was, which is a little weird that they pulled that one of all things out on the. I guess that would have been the Angel Retribution tour.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that's our quick weekly visit to Setlist FM, real quick.
There you go.
But yeah, I love that website. I have a very in-depth record of every concert I've been to on that website. I definitely keep my.
I just I want to because I want to make my own playlist off of that from shows that I've been to.
Yeah, luckily I only started going to shows in like 2017, so I have a good memory of. I was able to immediately start adding on when I went to shows on there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but yeah,
I was there, and other people. It's pretty cool.
I also am one of the people that when I'm at a show, I'll write the set list as it goes. So I'm trying, particularly for bands that I'm a big fan of that aren't necessarily big bands. I'll try to keep their set list pretty updated to make sure that it's. I'll follow specific bands and kind of update set lists and stuff. So
cool. Cool.
But yeah,
Yeah.
on to the next pick.
Yeah.
Painkiller versus No
for the
Prayer for the
Dying.
Dying. So this one was not hard for me whatsoever, but I felt bad because I really do want to highlight what a great album I think No Prayer for the Dying is. I think it's probably, to me, the most underrated Iron Maiden album. I think people really give this album a lot of shit for no reason, in my opinion. It's the first album after the what most people call the classic lineup broke up for the first time. Adrian Smith left before this album came out, and it was replaced by Yannick Gers, who I don't even think plays guitar. I think he just stands on stage and swings one around. But I really do enjoy this album a lot. I think there's a lot of really good. It kind of, like I said, gets back to the roots a little bit. I mean, right from the beginning with Tail Gunner and just throughout the album, I think there's a lot of really good, just stripped down rock and metal music on this album.
Yeah.
But that being said, it was never in a million years going to beat Painkiller. I mean, I think that this is just a masterpiece of metal. And I know it's kind of become popular in recent years to kind of call this album overrated. I know a lot of people that we all know
Yeah.
that will try to call this album overrated or say, which I do agree that Judas Priest in the years since has tried too much to repeat this and not repeat their classic stuff before it. I mean, that's definitely a lot of the complaint about the two new songs that they've released off the new album is that they sound too much like stuff off Painkiller. But I just think this album is just amazing from beginning to end. I reviewed this album on the Freeform Rock podcast with those guys, and I think it's just a great album from start to finish. It definitely brought them as well into a new sound from when, kind of like Iron Maiden with No Prayer for the Dying, it kind of left their lull in the past, and it really solidified them back in the heavy metal scene after two albums of just kind of aimless meandering. And so I definitely have to give it to Painkiller on this one.
Good one. Al, which way are you gonna go here?
Yeah, this was a no contest for me. Good night, hon. Sorry. This was definitely a no contest for me either. I mean, Painkiller just runs right over No Prayer for the Dying for me. But that being said, Joe hit on good stuff. I mean, No Prayer for the Dying isn't a bad album at all, man. I think it's they got back, they stripped back their sound, they got rid of the keyboard, too much keyboards, they stripped that back. I think the beginning of the '90s really kind of was, bands were starting to do that anyway. It was really like, the pendulum, like the whole '80s production techniques and everything kind of just got to be, by the late '80s, it was just so too much, man. And there needed to be, bands like Metallica and Slayer and all that stuff. They were bringing this rawness back into metal and stuff. And I think, Judas Priest took notice. And plus, they were probably fired up because of that, the trial that they had just got out of, with the two kids shooting themselves over Better By You, Better Than Me off of Stained Class. One of them survived. One of them died, but I think the one that survived has since passed away like years ago. But he was heavily disfigured. There's a good documentary on that. I think it's called Dreamer Deceivers or something like that, where it kind of just talks about that trial. So I think that whole trial kind of fired them up to come back. Like, really, they were pissed. They were probably like pissed off and everything. And plus the thrash metal was like really, it kind of took over everything, man. And I'm sure that, that inspired them as well. So, they came back. I mean, Painkiller is a classic, man, and Joe's right. Like, I think like they try to go back to that album. I mean, to me, like, I think Painkiller was kind of a reset for Judas Priest. And I think like they tend to like kind of, when they look back in their career now, they tend to go to that album a little too much. Like, I'd love for them to like revisit, like, if you're going to go back to a sound, go back to like Stained Class or like, Hellbent or, Sin After Sin, stuff like that. That's my favorite Priest. Like, I like when Priest was like dark and menacing and stuff like that. And this was kind of that way, but just in a more modern kind of like sound and production and stuff like that. So, and that's it. And I'm going to go with Painkiller. So it's Judas Priest for me.
Yeah, for me, just like y'all said, No Prayer for Dying is a good album, but man, Painkiller, where did this album come from?
Yeah.
Man, it is.
Scott Travis.
Yeah, exactly. Scott Travis did the
Yeah,
album.
let's go back to Ram It Down. So, like, really, Dave Holland isn't even on it. They use a drum machine.
Yeah.
You know, he was on an album, just his name, but I think they wanted and that, I mean, was that did they use drum machines on Turbo as well? I think he
Definitely.
actually. I think Dave actually played on an album too, but
He played on some of it, I think.
I think the production, they just processed the drums so much that it almost sounds like it's a drum machine.
So there's some tracks where I think it was like on the song Turbo Lover, that sounds like a drum machine.
Yeah. Okay.
But on like something on like Out in the Cold or
Cold.
Locked In sounds a little bit more. It like you said, the production definitely sounds like a drum machine, but it sounds more natural to me.
Yeah. But they process the shit out of drums.
Oh yeah.
And then on Ram It Down, it's just clearly like a drum machine on there. So, but Scott Travis comes in. He's literally like a human, like drum machine. I mean, he has a fast double kick, and
Yeah.
they were looking to really kind of get back to that. I guess like from the late '70s with Les Binks and stuff. Although I love Scott Travis, but sometimes I think his sound is a bit too mechanical as well.
Yeah.
To me, Les Binks was like my favorite Judas Priest drummer.
Mhm.
You know? That being said, I think Dave Holland. I think from the way they were steering into the '80s, I think Dave Holland actually was a very solid drummer, though. Like he almost had kind of that Phil Rudd quality to him, just like a good groove drummer, which is like made Priest kind of a little more groove oriented, you know. And I thought he was a great drummer for what he did, man. That style of drumming, which kind of like was, but again, Painkiller, Judas Priest wanted to get aggressive again, and Dave Holland was not the right drummer for that style of music, so that's why they brought in Scott Travis. So anyway, like I didn't mean to cut in on you there, but yeah,
No problem. No, it was just that everything y'all are saying is right. I mean, you never this was almost their thrash album.
Yeah.
Painkiller, and everybody was so rejuvenated and so powerful on this album. I mean,
inspired.
you
Yeah,
can feel it through the speakers, especially on the title track. You can just hear the unification of just a metal thrash album. So I went with Painkiller. That was a clean sweep. Man, this is going back and forth here quite a bit. But there's going to be shock coming through the airwaves. There is no Bruce. There is no Rob. The bands keep going on. We are introduced to Tim Ripper Owens, and we are also Blaze Bailey. Is that right? And I'm introduced to Blaze Bailey. They will be on board for two albums each, right?
Yep.
But we're only going to talk about one of the Baileys. But let's start off with Jugulator by Iron Maiden with Tim Ripper Owens against Virtual 11.
Judas Priest.
I'm sorry, by Judas Priest versus Virtual 11 by Iron Maiden. Go for it, Joe.
Alrighty. So, both of these are very contentious eras of the band. For the record, I do think both Blaze Bailey and Tim Ripper Owens are good vocalists. I do not think Blaze Bailey fit into Iron Maiden whatsoever, live or in the studio. I think Ripper Owens fit Judas Priest very well, especially live. If you listen to particularly 98 Live Meltdown is a great live album. And I think it takes any of the songs done on Jugulator and makes them sound even better live. I don't think that Jugulator is a great studio produced album. I don't think it worked as well in the studio. I don't think some of the songs were fleshed out as much as they would be live. But I think the Blaze Bailey era of Iron Maiden is just garbage. I don't think anything good came out of it, and I hate that they continue to bring songs back from that era and play them live. I don't think there's any need for it. I think when I saw them last year, they played 2 songs off. They
Kind of the
played
cross, I think, right?
and they played the Klansman too.
Yeah.
So they continue for as much as Judas Priest wants to pretend like the Ripper albums never happened.
Right.
Iron Maiden will consistently make Bruce Dickinson sing Blaze Bayley songs. Whether it's Bruce's own idea or not, whatever that may be, I don't agree with it. I definitely think he sounds better singing them than Blaze did, but I just don't think they are great songs. With that being said, I do definitely have to go with Jugulator for this one. Boy, talk about just your record label not giving an absolute shit about you. Look at this album cover. It looks atrocious. If anyone has ever seen the full print of the actual
shit.
Yeah, if anyone's ever actually seen like the full print of the original artwork, it's awesome. It's really cool looking. And all they did when they made this album is just put this really zoomed in pixelated version on the album cover and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to release that. That's your album cover." That's just when you know that, well, first they were on CMC, which was a dying thing by 97 anyway.
Well, that label was taking on all the bands that were dead.
Exactly. Motorhead was on CMC. Yeah. Judas Priest was on CMC.
That alternative, like, kind of killed off. Like, they were taken in.
Yeah. But that just shows you how little a label really cared about Judas Priest in 1997. But I do think there's some good... Oh, 100%. Yeah. I do think there's some really good tracks on this album. Like I said, all of them are better live on 98 Live Meltdown, or the other live, I think Live in London was the second one they did with Ripper Owens.
Oh,
wow. If you never checked those albums out, definitely check those live albums out. They're some great
I have that live album.
Yeah, cool, those are some really good live albums. But I definitely, of the two, Jugulator is definitely the better album.
All right. Al, what's going to be your pick there?
Yeah, I'm going with Jugulator as well. I mean, I admittedly, I never even bought. Was it Virtual
11?
Virtual 11. Never even bought that album. Jugulator. Yeah, I was actually, when that album came out, I was pretty into it. I was like, damn, they got even like heavier, and I liked Ripper's voice. I actually saw them on that tour too, at Roseland Ballroom in New York City. So they were scaled back a bit, so they weren't playing arenas now. I mean, both bands weren't at that time. They were scaled back into theaters and like clubs and stuff like that. Yeah. And yeah, because in the 90s was brutal for that, man. It was, metal didn't die in the 90s, but it just went underground. And there was other forms of metal that were big. I mean, industrial metal was big, and Pantera. Look at Pantera.
And Metallica at that time too.
Metallica. They kind of were abandoning the metal, kind of in a way. But they were going into more. They were embracing the alternative kind of, revolution or whatever. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, I think Jugulator is a pretty brutal album. I'd love to hear, as far as like Bruce singing the Blaze songs, I kind of didn't mind like 1 or whatever, but 2's a bit too much. I do like Sign of the Cross, the way Bruce sings it. I thought it was kind of cool.
If they had to pick one, that would be the one I would have picked.
Yeah. So they didn't really need to do Klansman, but anyway, I guess maybe, they want to, they kind of want to push it maybe with Bruce's vocals. They want to say, well, the Blaze Era wasn't a total flop, so let's kind of reimagine the songs with Bruce singing them or whatever. So that being said, I'd love to hear Rob Halford tackle Cathedral Spires on I think that's such an epic song. Probably the best song on Jugulator.
I'd love to hear him do either that or Burn in Hell. That would be a good one too.
Yeah. But yeah, if he tackled that one, man, that'd be cool. But yeah, I'm going with Jugulator. It's definitely the better album, man. So
yeah, I was new to both of these sides. I pretty much skipped them because who's going to replace this and that and this and that, and especially there in the 90s, I really jumped deep into alternative rock and rap and stuff like that, and country, and I was exploring so many different ways. And believe me, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden were, not on my radar at the time, and with new singers too. But as I went back, man, I really did myself a disservice of Judas Priest and Tim Rip Owens. The way that the band changed to fit his style and to fit his toughness and to fit what was um, the ideal of what he was going to bring to the band. When Iron Maiden kind of played Iron Maiden music and expected Bailey to sound like Judas, like Bruce, and that's what leaves a void. When Judas Priest changed their sound to fit Ripper, that's what I liked about it. The guitar solos were sharper, they were faster, and like y'all were saying, the music got heavier. And I think here during this time, in my opinion, I think Judas Priest is going to start to pull away um, with their music, but I definitely did enjoy Jugulator more than Virtual 11. So that's another album for Judas Priest. Right now it's 4-4. So it's tied, man. The next album we're gonna talk about, I'm sorry, Judas Priest, um, bringing in Demolition against Iron Maiden's, big comeback with Bruce. Brave New World. The big comeback. It brought a big tour on in 2000, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the first time I saw Iron Maiden was on this tour. So go for it, Joe. Which one are you gonna go with, Demolition or Brave New World?
So I think of all the Iron Maiden albums released after Bruce's comeback, I definitely think Brave New World is the best. Um, Unfortunately, I think it started a sad trend for them of they're still in that mode. They've basically been making the same album for the last 20 years,
Oof.
but just getting longer and longer and longer and longer. Demolition is god awful. It is probably to me the worst Judas Priest album. Everything that I enjoyed on Jugulator is not present here. I think that where a lot of things on Jugulator really worked, and I think the sound meshed really well. I don't think it does it on this album at all. I think that this album is a mess, songwriting wise, musicianship wise. Ripper doesn't sound as good as he did on Jugulator. I think they still sounded great live. As I mentioned, that second live album that came out on this tour, I think is really good as well. Not nearly as good as the first live album that they did, but for that reason alone, even though I don't think it's an amazing album, I do think it's a good album, and I definitely have to go with Brave New World on this one. Um,
Hmm.
just even if some of the album gets a little repetitive, and it definitely sounds like they're just trying to recapture that old sound, I still think they do it very well on this album. Uh, and I don't think they've been able to recapture that in any of the albums since, even though they've been trying their golly gosh darndest to do so. Um, I definitely have to go with Brave New World on this one.
Okay. Ow. Which way are you gonna go, Demolition or Brave New World?
Yeah, this was easy too, man. Brave New World, definitely. Yeah, Demolition is definitely it was almost like what happened in the late '80s happened in the late '90s. I mean, like Turbo was halfway decent or third way decent, and then Ram It Down was just kind of like a whole total fall off the cliff thing. This was kind of, I mean, although I'm not comparing Jugulator to Turbo, but they with Juggler, they definitely were going for like that kind of, they saw Pantera and things like that, and they kind of were trying to, they were kind of following a little bit of a trend there. I think with Demolition, they just, I mean, the songwriting on that was just not good, and Tim Ripper Owens has a great voice, and they just slattered his voice in like effects on this album, and kind of didn't really need that. The production on the album I didn't like at all. Whereas Brave New World was a welcome comeback with Bruce and Adrian, and and I think the songwriting was good on here, and the Wicker Man. I mean, I remember hearing I got a lot of radio play back in the day. You know, the title track, Blood Brothers, what's on Out of the Silent Planet. Yeah, some good tunes on here, man. They came back strong, man. After the Blaze, I think everybody just kind of welcomed this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you watch that video of the first concert they did back that they played on MTV of with them coming out on stage and doing Aces High, and the whole arena is just going absolutely batshit.
Yeah. I mean, they welcomed this back like with open arms, man. You know, so and I think Joe was kind of right, man. I mean, they started off strong with this album, and I think it's just kind of been diminishing returns like ever since. Even though there will be an album of theirs I really do like as well. You know, a lot of people probably don't share that same opinion with me, but when we get to it, we'll talk about it. But I'm going Brave New World on here. Definitely way better than Demolition. Way better.
I'm going to go with Demolition.
Are you really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like Joe was saying, that the album Brave New World is that there's a lot of repetition. I think there's repetition within each song. Just the repeated chorus over and over.
That's the problem. That's been the problem with Maiden ever since this album, man. It's just like the songs could be honestly 3-4 minutes shorter. You know.
I mean, the music is great, but man, the lyrics are just they're kind of lazy to me. To me, Demolition, it's kind of weird. It's kind of dangerous. It's the songwriting I thought was okay, but man, the guitars, the solos on here were really good, really strong, in my opinion. It's like it was like cutting through glass, and how excuse me, the way that KK and Glenn sound fresh and just updated with what they're doing. So I'm going with Demolition. I'll probably hear it a few more times, and I really want to buy that album because
I think it's tough to find, actually.
Yeah,
is it really?
Those 2 albums are been out of
both
print.
of them are, yeah.
So, but if you find it in a used record store, man, snap them up, dude, because
that's where I got my copy of Jugulator. Was at a used record store.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do. Hopefully, I'm off next week. I'm on vacation. I can hit several stores.
I don't think they were ever released on vinyl, so you'll never find them on vinyl. But
I'll find them any which way I can these days. Yeah, like this past week, I went. I bought a couple of albums, but I'm trying to fit in holes that I have. So I was able to get Fear of the Dark because I did not have it, and Kiss's Monster, which I was very surprised. I really enjoyed Monster.
I love that album.
Good album, man.
Yeah. And also, I did not have Ozzy's No Rest for the Wicked in any kind of medium.
Would you get them on vinyl or CD?
Those 3 on CD.
Okay.
Yeah, on vinyl, I bought a Dickie Betts. I like Dickie Betts solos, and this compilation my uncle had this on CD.
Oh, that's Rolling Stone.
That's Stone Sucking in the 70s. I found that, and then I also like the Loving Spoonful, and I found their debut album on a vinyl with like $1. I was like, dude, this is cool, and it was clean.
Good.
Yeah, because I really didn't. The prices were too high for the record store deal, so I went ahead and I moved on to the used stuff, and I found some stuff I really like. But yeah, I'm going to go with Demolition on that one. Next album we're going to talk about is going to be Judas Priest, Angel of Retribution. Rob comes back, and boy, does he come back, in my opinion, against Dance of Death by Iron Maiden. Very odd album cover. I think I've said this before, and I don't like to rehash jokes, but I am this way. It's like Master P produced that album cover for Dance of Death.
That's funny.
But we're not talking about the album cover here. We're talking about the music that is inside of it. Joe, which way are you gonna go?
And I will say I did rag on the record company for Judas Priest's Jugulator album cover. Yeah. I will definitely do the same for this absolute monstrosity of an album cover. I mean, what in God's name is this thing?
That's one of the worst.
They made it so bad because this was all record company. Iron Maiden just wanted the Eddie on front of it, But the record company said, "Oh no, we're gonna add in all these like CGI weird like pig people and stuff
Yeah.
on the album cover," and it's atrocious. But that being said, as far as these albums go, by far Angel of Retribution. I mean, this is just what like Andy said, what a comeback for Halford. I don't think that anyone was expecting this out of Judas Priest in 2004, or yeah, no, 2005. I'm sorry, 2005. I don't think anybody was expecting this out of Judas Priest, but I mean, Judas is Rising, Deal with the Devil, Worth Fighting For, Demonizer, Wheels of Fire. I mean, a lot of people will throw Loch Ness under the bus. I don't even hate that song, but I think this is just an amazing comeback album for Halford. And I don't think Dance of Death is that bad, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as Angel of Retribution.
Al, which way are you going to go with this?
Going with Angel of Retribution as well, man. Great comeback album. Rob comes back, man. Just they're firing on all cylinders. Songwriting takes a step up, and yeah, I call that one of the really good comeback albums, man. And Dance of Death was okay, but like they're starting to me, Maiden is starting to it's diminishing returns for them. They're starting to rehash like everything. Every song doesn't need to be long, and all this repeating. They could cut like songs 3-4 minutes, man. You're not progressive if you keep like it's not a progressive thing to just repeat like choruses and progressive is just like progressing, like
It
time
changes, it moves.
things like that. It's not just because you're repeating choruses to make the songs 10 minutes long, dude. It's not a good idea, man. But that being said, I'm going with Angel of Retribution. That's a great Priest album, man.
Yep. This is gonna be a clean sweep, but I do want to say the Dance of Death album cover is horrible, but the music is really good. In fact, I like it better.
It's not a bad album. It's good. It's a good album.
Good album.
I used to hate that album, but I've come to appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah. They put a little bit of injection into the songs compared to what was on Brave New World for me. Yes, the songs are a little bit longer, but they were more interesting than Brave New World. But Angel Retribution, I had that on CD for a while, and then I found it again like last month, and man, what a great album! It's got that Judas Priest feel. It really does. The production work. When we hear an album, the production is so important. Alice taught me this throughout the couple of years. It gives you that feel of what you just have different feels for different albums, and all that has to do with a production of what you're listening to. So, Angel Retribution has that darkness to it, um, and it's great, and I love it. And yeah, Angel Retribution won it for me on that one as well. So that was a clean sweep on that album. The next one, um, Judas Priest is going to serve up Nostradamus, which is a double concept album about the life of Nostradamus. It sounds interesting. Sounds interesting. Against a matter of life and death for Iron Maiden. Go for it, Joe.
All right, so the headline on this one: Judas Priest out Iron Maiden's Iron Maiden. You can talk all you want about Iron Maiden over the last 20 years putting out some of the most long, boring, repetitive albums ever known to man. But Judas Priest said, "Oh, we can one-up you on that too." And they did. And so for as long and boring and repetitive as A Matter of Life and Death is, and it's a very long, boring, repetitive album, at least it's not a long, boring, repetitive double album. And so this is basically what and what to me, but again, no props because I don't really give a crap about either of these albums. But just on principle of I'm not going to sit through 2 discs of long, boring, repetitive music, I guess the Iron Maiden album's better. I guess I'm going to go with Matter of Life and Death.
The album cover's cool though.
Yeah. I really like that album cover.
Go for it. Which way are you gonna go?
Yeah. Well, actually, like, Joe isn't like Matter of Life and Death. I actually like out of all like the latter day Maiden albums, I actually like this album probably the most, besides probably Brave New World. But I saw them on this tour, and I remember people being pissed because they played the whole album.
They played the whole album,
and then from start to finish, and then like I think they ended with like 3 songs, like maybe 2, 3 classics, and that's it. But listen, man, like that's been Maiden's way, like for a long time now, man. When we do a tour where we concentrate on classic stuff, the next one's gonna be promoting the new shit. So it's just kind of
they tell you this.
Yeah.
This is what.
Well, nowadays, nowadays
you just come to expect it by now.
You just come to expect it, and with the internet, I mean, by the time the first show's over, everybody knows the set list already. So, I enjoy it, but I do enjoy the album. I actually like it. I like the themes of the album, the war stuff, and all that stuff. Nostradamus, not just too bloated. The album is just nuts. Judas Priest. It's funny, dude. I brought this up on Facebook the other day. Judas Priest isn't being any sort of like innovative here because Iron Maiden really, Seven Sons of the Seven Sons really kind of the same concept, dude. They did it a decade, more than over 2 decades before, but I guess Judas Priest wanted to one up. Like, yeah, we'll make a double album, just like Joe said. A double CD. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not even that's probably close to a triple vinyl. You're getting real close to a triple vinyl.
It's brutal. If you can go into the album though, there are a couple of redeeming songs on there.
There are.
You could make a good 40-45 minute album with this album if you wanted to. Scrap the fucking concept and just whittle it down to like 5-6 songs and you're good. The double CD, just no way, dude. And I remember they were threatening. I remember they were talking about like they still wanted to do a tour where they highlighted this album. I mean, obviously they never did it. I'm sure by now they think it might not be a good idea. But they really were talking about like doing a tour where they played this whole album. Like do a whole concept. And I think that would just be a fucking career suicide. For them, man.
Right.
Pretty much. So it's ambitious, but they're not, stick to more concise songs and albums, dude. And you'll be good, man, which you'll see later on. They really come back in a big way again. So anyway, I'm going with Matter of Life and Death on this one.
Yeah. Props for trying to go for the music for the elder heavy side of things.
But that being said, I do like music from the Elders. So.
Oh, I love that album.
It's just too much. It's too much.
It's too much. It's too much, man.
Orchestra stuff where you didn't need it. It would have been nice if you're going to make long songs, instead of putting the orchestra pieces in there, let it be riffs, guitar riffs.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
It was just too much of something that I didn't care about at all.
Yeah.
And The Matter of Life and Death, I'm kind of in between you all. It's just okay.
That's why I don't hate it. It's okay. It's
yeah. I mean,
I think it's Iron Maiden's last okay album.
Yeah. After this would be
So I also went with Matter of Life and Death. It's just it was kind of, well, I might as well go for this one because I hate the other one so much. And I was kind of excited when it came out because I like history, Nostradamus, and then it was just, man, it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. So that was a clean sweep for Matter of Life and Death. I'm pretty sure
I remember
Maiden going, really? That album got all 3 of those votes? So yeah, it did.
I remember the CD, the Nostradamus CD. I actually won a radio promo copy of that. So like I didn't even buy it, but I won and I remember, and I was like, well, at least I saved myself like about fucking $15-20. You know what I mean? So because I probably would have went and bought it because I love Judas Priest, and I usually buy all their stuff. But that was like one that like a radio station was giving it away, and I ended up getting it a free promo of it, and I was just kind of relieved that I didn't plunk down the money for it. It sits somewhere on my shelf, man, collecting dust. I only keep it because I'm a completist. I like Judas
Right.
Priest, so it's like I gotta kind of have it, but I don't know.
But
I
I
don't think I didn't even revisit it for this thing, so I
well,
already
you already
knew.
knew the answer, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Matter of Life and Death wins on that one. Next album, we've only got two more to go, man. This has been a really fun time. Judas Priest is going to come out with Redeemer of Souls versus Book of Souls by Iron Maiden. One's redeeming, the other one's got a book of them. It's kind of they cross each other quite a bit when it comes to themes. But which way are you gonna go, Joe?
All right. So I will say I'll make a point to throw this in here. We're skipping over a very bad album. We of course are skipping just because there was no Judas Priest album released around the same time. Possibly the worst Iron Maiden album that didn't have Blaze Bayley on vocals, and that is The Final Frontier. That is just a god awful album. From beginning to end, it's just absolutely atrocious. But we're not talking about it, so moving on. The fun background for this one for me is this was the album that was getting ready to come out when I kind of first really got into Iron Maiden in high school. And so I had really kind of gotten into Iron Maiden like 2014 into 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really into all the 80s stuff. I was not educated enough to realize that Paul Di'Anno was a better singer than Bruce Dickinson was at that time. So I was still all on the Bruce bandwagon. And I was listening to the Rock and Metal Combat podcast, and so I was kind of up on a lot of the news as far as when albums are coming out and stuff. And the first single came out for this album, and I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good song. I like this song. Speed of Light was the single.
Yeah, it had
And
that
I'm like,
cartoon game.
yeah.
Video.
And so me at whatever 15, 16, 17 years old, whatever I was at that time, when that album came out, my dad drove me to FYE and I bought the CD. And actually, that was also when I bought the CD of Brave New World because they had a special going on that if you bought Book of Souls, you got this for like $2 or something.
Oh,
which
wow.
is a great deal because this is a much better album than that. But so I got the CD, I started listening to it, I realized, oh, this is 2 discs. That's weird.
Yeah.
Put the CD in, starts at Speed of Light. Okay, yeah, great track. No, I think if Eternity Should Fail was the first track or whatever, I'm like, okay, this is okay. Speed of Light goes great, and then it just starts going and going and going and going. And then I get home and I put disc 2 in, and I see this track that's 18 minutes long. And I said, well, I have had my first experience with learning that not always is it a good idea to spend your money on a brand new album by a band that you like, because sometimes they're going to let you down. So hard lessons to learn as a teenager, but God, that album is not good. On the other hand, I think Redeemer of Souls is a very good album. I think it's definitely a great comeback from Nostradamus. They kind of go back again to not as good as Angel of Retribution, but kind of back to that kind of formula. Still, almost a lot of lyrical themes that you saw on Nostradamus are kind of carried over to this, but musically and as like lengthwise, it's a lot more back to Angel Retribution. But there's some great stuff on here. Halls of Valhalla, which I was really happy that they kept bringing back into the set list. Even though I've never seen Judas Priest live, that would be one I'd love to see them play if I do get to see them. But just so many great songs on this album, and it definitely wins for me over Book of Souls.
Ow.
Yeah, man, Redeemer of Souls, man, hands down. I mean, just Richie Faulkner comes in, man, and KK leaves. He thought he thought that they were going to retire, and they get Richie Faulkner in new blood. And at first, I was like, wow, dude, like they're continuing on with KK, it's fucking fucked up and shit. But dude, when I heard this album, I'm like, yeah, they corrected themselves, man. It seems like Judas Priest needs to fall once in a while. They need to stumble and come back with a really strong album. You know what I mean? It's like, like you want to really correct and right the ship, and they really hunker down and songwriting wise and everything. I think Richie Faulkner had a lot to do with that, man. He really brought this band back. I love Richie, man, and I'm glad he's in the band, dude. Like, I've really come to like accept him, as really a savior of like Judas Priest, dude. He really, the material speaks for itself. That the stuff that he's been on, and seeing him live. You never saw him, Joseph?
No, I've never gotten a chance.
Oh, definitely, man. When you get a chance to see them, man. But I love that they bring back. They've been really like adventurous with their set lists.
Yeah,
bring back really good nuggets from the past, and something that Iron Maiden should really fucking, they should really take a note of. So, Redeemer of Souls, great album. I love a lot of the songs on the album. Production wise, it brings it down a little bit. I think it could have been better produced. That being said, the material is strong enough to really I can kind of overlook that. So yeah, they came back good. They came back strong on this album, man, which would lead up to the next thing. So, but I'm picking Redeemer.
Yeah. The last tour I saw with Maiden was Book of Souls, and I believe the last time I saw Judas Priest, they were part of Ozfest. Was the last time they played Ozfest. I'm not too sure what album
2004
that was. Yeah, that's the last time I saw him.
Really? That's the last time I saw Priest, huh? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, because I think they played. It was right when Rob came back, but it was before Angel of Retribution, I think, came out. So it was like kind of a reunion tour, but they didn't have the album out yet. Yeah, they were doing Ozfest, and I believe it was 2004. So
Sabbath was playing. It was the original Sabbath.
Yeah, the original. That was like the last time original Sabbath was together. So
because it was the couple shows that Halford filled in for Ozzy.
Yeah, but Bill Ward was playing with Sabbath, which is cool, Yeah,
and I think Velvet Revolver played that show.
Did they? Okay, I don't remember.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
And so was that
Slayer too, I think, right? And Slayer play.
Slayer was there. That was the first time I saw Slayer, and I'm not the biggest Slayer fan, but I've seen them twice live because they played festivals that I went to. And dude, seeing them live is freaking amazing, dude.
Yeah.
It is just they blew me away both times. But to get back to this, Redeemer of Souls for me, I remember the first time I heard Redeemer of Souls, I loved it.
Yeah.
And Book of Souls, I did go see that tour, but man, they just fucking suck the life out of you. I mean, dude, you're like going to sleep driving. You're like, man, what's going on here? The musicianship is great. It is. I mean, they're playing their asses off. There's no reason to be playing your ass off for so long. It's like when you hear Pink Floyd Dogs. You don't feel the 17 minutes go by.
No, because it's such a great.
It's such a great song.
It's interesting, or like 2112. You put that on, it's like
that's like 23 minutes. And
you don't feel
like
Supper's Ready by Genesis or something like that.
Yeah. You can have long songs and have them be interesting where they don't feel long.
Right.
When you start doing
is another great one.
Yeah. When you start repeating the choruses over and over and all that, it just becomes a bore, tedious kind of thing, And dude, I mean, I know Steve Harris loves like Jethro Tull and things like that, man. But I mean, you don't really need to fucking be it. It's just they really need to fucking just kind of rethink if they're gonna do one more album. They really just
have to be different.
They gotta really go back to the roots, man, and just kind of rethink, because I don't know, man, like they just don't seem to care, man. It's
they need to take a page from what Judas Priest is doing.
Yeah,
because
Judas Priest is doing to me, Judas Priest musically and to me, Judas Priest musically and albums and all that, they've just been killing fucking Iron Maiden, dude. This last decade and a half, whatever, 2 decades. So, but with the exception of Nostradamus.
But let's not talk about that one. But yeah, But other than that, they've been coming out with really good product, and they're back on top of the metal game.
Yeah.
They really are. So the last album that we're gonna talk about, even though I believe Judas Priest comes out with a new one in February.
Yeah, they're gonna come out. Yeah.
Yeah, and Joseph has given his opinion on the two songs that came out. I like both songs. I
I
know
liked
it's
the second one. I was not a fan of the first one.
yeah, yeah. I like them both. I like them both. So, with that being said, what do you think about their first two songs from this new album coming out? Al?
Me, like
Yeah,
I dig them, man. I think they're pretty good, dude.
yeah,
You know, I tend to just, I'll reserve judgment when I really hear the whole album, but
right.
it's promising though. I think Priest is gonna have a really good album again, man. I think
Yeah,
Faulkner is just kind of he's been really a great asset to this band,
yeah.
So
Again,
uh,
again,
and
it's
I
another Travis thing. Injecting the new blood
yeah, yeah,
into the sound, or
yeah,
bringing back the Judas Priest. So, well, maybe sometimes that's what bands need is injection of these young guys.
yeah.
Because it seems to be working a lot for Judas Priest. Maybe that's something that Iron Maiden can inject somebody young. Because man, these guys are 60 plus. You
Yeah.
know, so we'll see what
I
happens.
think one thing about Judas Priest, man, and I love KK, dude. I mean, and you know what? Props to KK because I think the two albums that he's put out has been pretty good too, man. I mean,
Yeah,
he's really him and Ripper, man. They've been the albums that they put out. This last album that KK's put out is pretty strong too, man. So it's kind of like now it's you get you're kind of getting two great bands out of like the division. But, that being said, I would love to see KK back in there, but I think he really burned that bridge, man. I think they just don't want like any drama or anything anymore. I think they have like a smooth running ship now, and they're like in the ride. And I don't know, to bring KK back in might not be to them. Listen, we're not in the band. We don't know the dynamics,
right.
man. We don't know completely. Like everybody has their version of the stories, and maybe he's fucking hard to deal with, man. Maybe him and Rob don't get along anymore. I think it was him and
I think it was him and Ian. It was
I
him
think it
and
was him and
Ian.
Glenn
Oh,
too. Tipton, I think, didn't really get along anymore. But yeah, him and Ian as well, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that was the real big one. I think that was like the really, really big was him and Ian.
oh
yeah,
wow. Well,
yeah.
if he
So
has a riff with everybody in the band,
yeah, it's just kind of like he needed to kind of ease up on some comments and shit too.
yeah.
You're not doing yourself any favors like by constantly bitching and complaining about how you should be back in there, and you know. Anyway, you left on your own accord,
Yeah.
so, and then you wrote a book and kind of, you know, dish some dirt and shit like that. So,
Yeah.
When you write the book and you throw people under the bus, it's kind of hard to come back from that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because the
So,
fans don't buy it, even though they want him back. But then if they do bring him back, that means that Faulkner will have to take a step back.
no, I think he can play with Faulkner. I think the two would be great together. Like it would be the other guy that kind of the
Yeah,
producer of the
the
album,
Yeah.
producer.
Andy
uh,
Sneap.
Andy Sneap. That's it. And he would definitely be the one that would step down, and KK and
Yeah, that's
Faulkner would
true.
be the guitar duo
Yeah,
because Glenn isn't playing full shows anymore.
right.
So he would really kind of step into that role, which would be kind of cool to see. I just wish they can kiss and make up and kind of do that. But I mean, listen, man, it's not our band, dude. It's
Yeah,
But I
we
think Priest
we
has
don't
been
know what
fucking
happened.
great, dude. So
Yeah, we don't know what happened. But let's Firepower by
yeah,
Judas Priest against Senjutsu.
it's not even
Another long album. Even though I have enjoyed it more recently than I did when it came out. When it
I
came
think
out,
if you live with it for a little while, I think there's some songs that are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
You know? It
but
was.
let's
I think somebody on the internet actually made like kind of an edit of that album. It kind of
go.
flows better. They kind of I think cut the length of the songs down. It's actually a better listen actually, but that just goes to
Yeah.
show you that the songs can be cut down a few minutes. Anyway, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Joe.
Yeah, no. I definitely think Shinjutsu's a better album overall than the past two albums that they put out. I think it's definitely still way too long. There's some songs that definitely need. I think every song could definitely use some cutting, but there's some good songs on there. Overall, it's still not a good album. But my experience with Firepower kind of parallels a little bit and contrasts with my experience the first time I heard Book of Souls. So Firepower was the first Judas Priest album to be released after I really, really got into Judas Priest.
Right.
Redeemer of Souls had come out before I was a really big Judas Priest fan. And so I was in college and I was sitting there one night with my roommates, and my roommates were all big heavy metal fans too, one of them particularly. And it was right before Firepower came out. And of course, all these albums do it, the whole album leaked out like a day or two before it came out. And so before the CDs or anything came out, we got a chance to listen to the whole album. We sat down, we put it on, we were playing a game or something, we put the album on, and within like 2 or 3 tracks, we stopped what we were doing. We're just like, dude, this album is freaking amazing. We stopped what we were doing and just focused our entire attention on listening to the album. And throughout the entire rest of the time the album was playing, we were just completely focused on the album. And to this day, I still will say that this album is, I think, my favorite album that has come out this century from any band. I think that this is just, to me, this album came out of nowhere. I mean, now going back into their discography, I mean, the Angel of Retribution and Redeemer of Souls are both great albums, but I don't think I was expecting anything like this album. This, to me, is a perfect album. I think for Judas Priest in 2018 to release an album this good.
In 2018, dude.
Yeah.
40-something years into their career.
Yeah. It was insane. And I listened to this album still 5 years later all the time. I consistently come back to this album, and I don't know if I can say that about almost any other band's current work.
Wow.
That I come back to as consistently as I come back to Firepower. So, like I said, Shinjutsu's not as bad as the 2 previous albums by Iron Maiden, but it's not even in the same galaxy as Firepower.
Al, what's your say?
Well, it's a cool album cover.
Yeah.
I do like
the vinyl. Yeah.
This is the vinyl, and you got that in the back. It's cool. It kind of harkens to the one with him, Samurai, like almost harkens back to kind of a Made in Japan kind of throwback. And again, like I've listened to some of the album, and it's grown on me because I remember when I first got it, like, you know, I was like, another fucking long ass Maiden album, dude. It's becoming like the fucking norm. Dude, they really need to make it fucking double albums, dude. You know?
Yeah.
If they're going to make another double album, my proposition to them is bring back Diano, make one album Dickinson and one album, you know, because they're getting up there. I don't know how much longer like Maiden and Priest are going to be around. You know what I mean? They're getting into the twilight of their careers now.
Yeah.
You know,
gotta be somehow.
It'd be kind of cool if they did one more go around, like bring it full circle and bring back fucking Diano. Like make a double album, make one disc Diano, the other one, you know, Dickinson. I think that would be awesome, man.
Yeah, do like a Halloween Pumpkins United kind of thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That being said, man, they ain't fucking beating this fucker right here, bro. I mean, look at that, bro. It's just signed by all of them, too. You know? And this album, man, I thought Redeemer of Souls was good, man. This fucking even pisses all over that, dude. It's like they took the good songwriting, just fucking up like 5-10 notches, man, and this just made an all killer album, man. I mean, this is just an awesome album, dude. You know, and I'm really hoping like their next one's gonna be. It's probably not gonna be as great as this one, but I'm hoping it will be just about as solid as this one. And hopefully Faulkner brings his A game again, you know, songwriting was, because he's been a fucking great asset to that band, bringing their songwriting back and stuff. So, and this is a great vinyl too, man. I love this vinyl, but it is black vinyl though. but I love like the center.
Oh
The
yeah,
center,
yeah.
the center labels and all that, man. It's just really cool, And
I love
the
I
gatefold's
love
really
the different
cool.
art that's on the
Yeah, the
center.
gatefold's really
Oh
cool.
yeah.
That kind of harkens back, almost kind of like a Screaming for Vengeance, kind of almost,
Mhm.
kind of theme. But yeah, dude, I mean, this album rules, man, like Joe, man. I mean, I revisit this album very often, dude. It's just fucking, it's so strong, man. For them, and again, like for them to come in late in their career and do an album like this is just awesome. And there's been a few bands like lately, late in their careers, been Blue Oyster Cult's another band.
Oh yeah, Symbol Remains was freaking
Yeah,
amazing.
a great album. And there's a couple bands that like it seems like they get a little bit of a creative spark towards going into the end of their career. I've been hearing good things about like the latest Foghat album, and I haven't heard it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I've been hearing
the past couple Saxon albums.
Saxon's been they've been like really solid like the past 15, 20 years, man.
Mm-hmm.
They've been really good. It's just it's awesome that like a lot of these older bands are still releasing good material,
Yeah.
and Maiden just needs to take a goddamn note, don't be so pretentious, man. Cut back on the just cut back on the length of the songs and be a bit more concise, man. And they just need to revisit their roots, man. They're not. They've been disappointing me for like 20 years, man. Pretty much. So I mean, Redeemer. I'm sorry. Firepower for me, man. Definitely.
For me, it's going to be I love Redeemer of Soul so much. It was such a good album that when Firepower came out, it didn't sound anything like a Redeemer of Souls, and that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping for another Redeemer of Souls, so I was kind of disappointed, and I put it away. And then when Senjutsu came out, it was too long. But lately, with help from my buddy Mark Allen Taylor, who's a big who likes that album, Sam, Mark likes it. I'll give it another shot. And lately, it's been I like it more than I did before. But man, Firepower stands on its own. It didn't need Redeemer of Souls. It really, really did stand apart. And Richie Faulkner, like you said, such a big part with the how he just injected himself into the Judas Priest name and into their brand. And I think it's fantastic. So I'm hoping for good things on this album again. So Firepower sweeps it, even though Senjutsu is never going to be better than Firepower, but I do like it more now than I did when it came out. So let's do a tally, and well, Judas Priest did win this. Um, I need to count again.
I think it's 7-6.
7-6. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I got. It's 7-6. And what a battle. It started off just Maiden for me. But then as the careers went on, Judas Priest just got stronger. And they got stronger because just like these other bands that y'all are talking about that are making a push later in their career, they're not trying to fit in to what's on the radio anymore because there is no more rock radio. They're just playing what they're good at and they're giving their fans what they want and they're good at it. And that's why these bands are doing so well. Again, it's because they're playing the way we love them to play. So, hopefully I would love to hear another Iron Maiden album that's going to be shorter, half as short. You can still have a song or two, but not all of them.
Yeah,
And
I
make them
agree, man.
interesting, long songs.
They need to cut the fat, man. Really, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, they
too
really
much,
do
man. You
because
know,
the musicianship is there. Iron Maiden can still do whatever they want. That's the problem. They're doing whatever they want. They need to be scaled back from themselves or a producer or something, or maybe they need to call the Judas Priest camp and ask how are they doing it. You
they
know
need
what
to
I mean?
cut. They need to cut Yannick Gears out too.
Yeah, they need to get rid of their producer, who is just an enabler. He's basically just there to do whatever.
Oh
Steve
yeah,
Harris
Kevin
wants.
Shirley, dude. He's not doing
Yeah.
them any favors, man.
Nothing.
It's just a yes, sir. That's all
Yeah.
that they're doing there.
Yeah.
You know, and here, such a big collaboration that's going on in the Judas Priest camp.
Yeah.
And they are doing very well for it, even though, Iron Maiden is still going to sell out shows. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the quality of what music is coming out by these two bands. And Judas Priest is shining bright. And I think they're going to shine brighter when it comes February.
I still blows my mind that like globally, like Maiden is just such a much bigger band than Priest now, dude.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, Priest's like material has just been so strong. I don't understand how it's not translating them like bigger, but I don't know. I think
Iron Maiden always had that really, really big connection, particularly in like South America and stuff.
Yeah.
They've always been, and people that hate Iron Maiden or that think Iron Maiden is overrated will always say, "Oh, well, it's the image, it's Eddie, it's this, it's whatever." I agree to some point. I think they wouldn't be nearly as big without the album covers and stuff, and like, but it's just like this cult following, and I don't think it ever translated as much in the U.S. as it did elsewhere, particularly in like Europe and South America, because even in England itself, like they're not as big as they are in like mainland Europe and South America. But if you just stack up their discographies, which like what we did today, but even like Al and I both said, we left out the best Judas Priest albums. Like we didn't even talk about the best Judas Priest albums today.
Yeah, we completely cut out like the 70s stuff.
Yeah. We did talk about the best Iron Maiden albums today, and some of them got beat by Judas Priest albums that weren't the best Judas Priest albums.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's my biggest argument in these two bands is purely on albums, you stack up Judas Priest's discography versus Iron Maiden's discography. Priest discography wins for me hands down. It's much more consistent over the years. It certainly has had its lows, and we've talked about all of them today.
Right.
But overall, that discography is much more consistent than Iron Maiden, and Judas Priest is still putting out great new music, whereas I cannot say the same for Iron Maiden. And then also, if you give me a generic Iron Maiden set list from 2022 versus what Priest has been doing the past few years,
oh yeah, dude,
I will see that Priest show every single time. Priest always finds a way to pull out some really cool, deep tracks from 70s albums, from 80s albums. They're pulling out stuff from the past couple albums. They're pulling out something from pretty much every album except for the Ripper stuff. And what I loved about each leg of the Firepower tour featured different songs off Firepower. They didn't overdo it with Firepower, even though I would have loved to play almost the entire album on that tour.
Yeah.
They featured different songs on different legs of the tour. So I think they played Lightning Strikes at most of them because it was the big single, but like they'll pull out Trader's Gate or they pull out Spectre or they'll pull out some different tracks on each part of the tour. And I think that's awesome because it gives you even more room to pull out stuff like Out in the Cold or to pull out All Guns Blazing or to pull out different stuff that people have not heard Judas Priest play in years or in some cases never because Take These Chains they just played for like the first time ever I think it was on the last tour.
Yeah, shit, man. They played like Invader off of Stained Class, dude. I was like, dude, holy shit, man.
Yeah. Like
it's awesome.
And like they're pulling out all this different stuff, and it's so amazing to see bands that do that. And as much as Iron Maiden loves shoving their new albums down people's throats, whenever you see them, it's the same tracks from the 80s.
Yeah.
It's the exact, which you can say on this tour, I'll give them the fact that on this tour they are featuring some different stuff because they're mainly featuring Somewhere in Time.
Right.
So they're playing Alexander the Great that they never played. They're pulling out Caught Somewhere in Time that they have not done since the 86 tour.
Yeah.
And they're pulling out some stuff like that, but like that's literally like the first time they've done that since maybe like I'd say probably 2005 when they did that like 20 date tour. Like I can't remember what it was called, but it was when they they were when they just put out the early years documentary, and they only played songs off the first 3 albums.
Yeah.
And like they pulled out a bunch of deep cuts then, but that's like the last time that they really went into the vaults and pulled deep cuts out.
Yeah.
And for a band that tours pretty much every year,
Yeah.
you got to be pulling more deep cuts out. We can only listen to you play Run to the Hills so many times. And like, I do think it's great that they only recently, within like the last, 2 tours, brought Flight of Icarus back into the set list, because that was one for years that they just refused to play.
Yeah.
Because they hated that it got big in America. But they're one of those bands that are kind of like in like the Kiss realm, where it's like your discography is, especially to your hardcore fans, so deep that you could do so much better with like really going in and pulling out some gems for the people that this far into your career are still coming and paying money to see you live.
Yeah, that's true. And also we were just talking about how strong the Judas Priest albums are lately, that they're mixing in the old and the new, and people are loving it because they love these new albums. Metal Ben has responded that he loves the new songs. He thinks they're killer, and also he also said that he prefers Priest over Iron Maiden. I think we just talked about that as well for us three.
Even though I'm wearing an Iron Maiden shirt, I do prefer Judas Priest overall to Iron Maiden. I've always been a bit more of a Priest fan, and so I mean I love both bands, man, but I've always just kind of preferred Priest a bit more.
But when Iron Maiden releases a great album, it's a freaking great album.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
been such a fucking long time. You know,
long time.
They just really need to just kind of hunker down and just kind of reevaluate. You don't need to do the long songs, man.
You know,
or like limit it to like one.
Yeah. I mean, they always have like 1 or 2 epics on an album. It's fine.
Right.
You know.
But they can make their jobs a lot easier. Just man.
Yeah.
They just need somebody to tell them no. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody to tell them no.
Yeah.
They're Iron Maiden. That's the problem.
Yeah, they need somebody to challenge.
That's in there is giddy just because they invited him to go in there.
Yeah.
You know, and of course he's not going to tell the mighty Iron Maiden no. Hey, maybe this is too long, guys. You know, we're running out of tape here.
Yeah.
Well, just start up a third disc.
Right.
That's what's next. We all know it. We all know it's coming. They've consistently gotten to the point where, and I've noticed this in a lot of bands that are just like, it got really bad with the dawn of the CD era, where 2 sides of vinyl wasn't enough anymore. Now you had to put like 15 tracks on an album. Then in like the last like 5 or 10 years, double albums have been getting really, really big again.
Yeah.
And it's just getting to the point where it's like, where do these things cut off? Like, you have albums like Hardwired from Metallica that really didn't need to be a double album because you could have fit it all on one CD anyway.
Yeah, I didn't get the logic in that. You know,
I think they were just like it was like they wanted to make it seem like a bigger thing than it was, and the packaging and everything. But like, even then, like I could easily cut like 2 songs off that album, and I think it would be an amazing album.
Oh yeah,
but
because Hardwire was very good.
Hardwire was really good. Yeah. But you see a lot of bands really getting into the whole. I mean, Dream Theater did it with the Astonishing, which was another kind of like Nostradamus, like who in 2015 asked in 2015 for a 2-disc concept album from Dream Theater? No one. Oh yeah, please, gosh, no. And I know they would want to. Oh, I know they would want to, but I certainly hope we never hit that point where they just do like what some bands have done, where it's just the entire album is one song.
Oh yeah. Like Yes, but Yes is interesting, especially in their 70s stuff. But
even then, the one
just needs to shape up.
But even then, the one time that Yes did nothing but 20-minute songs on their album, people were like, "Okay, this is a little much." Like Tales from Topographic Oceans, people were like, "Okay, that's a little too much."
Yeah. a song per side. A song
Yeah.
per side. But those songs, there's so many changes
Yeah.
in the songs. It wasn't just one big long riff or one big long
Mm-hmm.
sound. They changed it, and each song had different suites
Yeah.
in it.
Well, I think that's the problem with Iron Maiden, especially specifically Steve Harris, is I think he's caught up in the whole. Well, if you're writing a really long song, that means you're a musician, that you're an interesting musician, that you are.
Right.
I think he's missing the point. Like exactly what Andy said, these things have movements to them. They have 2112 has specific movements. Supper's Ready has
Different songs.
specific
Yeah.
movements. They're not literally 15 minutes of the exact same thing that goes nowhere and just repeats the chorus over and over again, and then they do some noodling and then back to repeating the chorus over and over. Because I don't think Iron Maiden, since possibly like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which even then that one kind of gets a little bit
Long in
a
the
little
tooth,
at some
just a little.
point.
Yeah. But
Not
it
nearly
can still
like the
hold
new
classic
stuff.
status. It can still
Yeah,
hold classic status. But this
definitely.
is
It's
not
definitely a
classic
classic
at all.
song, but these songs, it's just they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're just long for the sake of being long to make Iron Maiden look like I don't know if it's like better musicians or what it is, but they just it's this perception that well, if we write long songs, that must mean that we're intellectual.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
like they're trying to change their
Yeah.
outlook or whatever it is. I don't like it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then again, just we were talking about Hardwire. He thinks this is their best album since Justice. I
Oh,
like
definitely.
I liked Death Magnetic for one. I really did like Death Magnetic.
I wasn't a big Death Magnetic guy.
But the Death Magnetic, you can tell they were trying too hard where it didn't sound authentic.
And the
But
production
all
on
the
that album was
things,
just really bad.
I liked it.
Yeah.
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 Some of the
The production is fucking too hot on there, man. It's just too. You can hear the distortion and stuff, man. You gotta look for the Guitar Hero version. That's the better version.
that one, but also there's I can't remember what the YouTube channel is called, but they do a lot of really cool remixes of like all different Metallica, but their Death Magnetic remixes have been like people have been saying this really, really good. They kind of level things out a little bit, kind of pump things up that need to be pumped up, like lower some of the stuff down. They did that, and then they also did some really good remixes of some songs on Justice. That when most people do a remix of stuff on Justice, they just pump the bass up really high. But this guy actually went in and like actually took the stems and kind of like what people have like kind of what they've been doing with the Beatles albums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like went in and took stems and stuff and like actually remixed the songs. And it sounds really, really good. But it gave me a new appreciation for some of those Death Magnetic songs.
Okay, then that's something I need to go check out because I do like Death Magnetic,
Mhm.
and I
I'll find the YouTube channel, Andy. I'll send you the link.
all right, cool, and also that EP that they came out that Beyond
Mhm.
Magnetic was really good too. I liked Beyond Magnetic. All right, guys, anything y'all want to add before we head out tonight?
Joe, it was really great having you on the show.
Thank you. Always enjoy it.
And I'm cooking up an idea for next week's show. I think I might center it around Kiss since they're ending. I might do like some sort of Kiss themed thing. Andy's letting me take the reins on that show, so it might be Kiss themed. I don't know. I'm still kicking around the idea, but but before the weekend ends, I'll try to flesh it out and get a word out on what it's going to be. And if it's something that you're interested in, Joe, obviously you're always welcome to come on. Yeah, there it is. So, and Andy,
Yeah.
it's awesome partnering up for you now for good.
Yeah.
I hope I don't piss you off and you fire me or something. So
No. Well, no.
We're in many communities with drama lately.
Yeah.
Oh, I try to steer clear of that shit, man.
You know I do too. You saw I had to come out of my hidey hole a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, no, but it needs to be said. Certain things need to be, interventions need to be done. So,
yeah.
But we'll leave that, for privacy. Anyway,
but I'm very excited to have you on here, Al. you
Yeah.
know,
Thank you.
with new ideas and new topics. I'm just excited for the future of Black Spitter Circle. So
All
thank
right,
you so
cool.
much for saying yes. Thank you everyone for watching. There are a lot of people coming in and out. And thank you again for Middle Ben. Thank you so much for your comments. And everybody else that said hello to us. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week here at Black Spitter Music Podcast. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thanks
I
for having
appreciate
me.
it, man.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Take it easy.
See ya.